I wanted to warn you, I'm not a specialist in big data, so I may disappoint you. I'm a historian of science specialized in photography, and part of my research deals with the emergence of biometrics at the end of the 19th century. And in particular, my work focuses on chronophotography, which was, the scientific understanding and measuring of human movement through the use of chronophotography, which was the taking of a succession of images in a particular period of time. So in this presentation, I will try to make connections between these 19th century projects and the current uses of images in processes related to big data. In this regard, my aim is to open the debate with some questions rather than with answers. So the main point of my presentation will be the understanding of both 19th century and 21st century projects as performative practices rather than representational practices. This image-based project, this means that I will not consider their outputs as mere visual data. While photographic images have a considerable scientific weight in the photographic projects of Jules Marais, Edward Muybridge, Jules Janssen, Albert Londe, and others, these projects cannot be reduced to the resulting images. The analysis of the photographic practices together with the scientific discourses reveals that as important as the resulting images were the procedures through which the photographs were taken. And actually, it was the procedure rather than the image what had the scientific value. So today I will focus on one particular project, the chronophotography of movement that Albert Londe made in the context of Paul Richer's research on physiology. The analysis of this project, which will occupy most of my time, will establish the basis to examine big data gathered from social networks and the problem of the construction of individual identity from a performative perspective. So in 1895, the photographer Albert Londe produced this chronophotographic series, which is called the Marche Enthusiastique, the Enthusiastic Gait. This was part of his work with Paul Richer. Richer was trained as a doctor and had specialized on hysteria under the direction of Jean-Martin Charcot, the Parisian hospital La Salpêtrière, which maybe you have heard about it, it's quite famous. But in the 1890s, he turned his research interest to the physiology and the anatomy of movement. So this chronophotographic series portraying a man walking in profile with his right arm raised and looking at the camera illustrated what Richer called the expressive gait. According to him, men often work while pursuing another goal different at the very act of translation, and this goal modifies their gait. This was particularly important in the case of art, because artists rarely represent men who are just walking. Usually they have another purpose. In this regard, Richer remarked, and I quote, "The gait will always reflect the passions of the man, and depending on whether he is lazy, enthusiastic, sad, happy, humble, or proud, the gait will acquire particular signs." So Richer explained the enthusiastic gait as this one, as that of the antique warrior, the warrior coming back home after victory, or the common man singing La Marseillaise. So now you know. The scientific analyses were grounded on the chronophotographs, but the illustrations that accompanied this article were drawings made by Richer after Londe's photographs. Furthermore, as this illustration manifests, instead of reproducing the whole series of chronophotography, Richer only selected one image that, according to him, displayed the most remarkable features of the pose. So this is a book which was published at the end of the 19th century, when photomechanical reproduction was not only possible, but even used in the very book, which also reproduction of the chronophotographs. but in which most of the illustrations were drawings made after the chronophotographs, which had been taken with the specific purpose of the research. So this is kind of a paradox. And it is precisely the choice of drawings over photographs what demonstrate that the value lies on the chronophotographic processes rather than on the image itself. In fact, as Richard recognized, the image alone, the chronophotographic image alone, was useless because it even contradicted our common perceptions of human movement. He says that if we just focus on one of these images alone, we wouldn't recognize any movement because artists haven't represented movement in this way. So this is true, but this is against our common perception. So it's better to train the eye with illustrations based on true facts, but adapted to our perceptions. Well, Albert London was a renowned photographer at the time when he took this chronophotographic series. Hired in 1882 as a chemist at the laboratory of the Salpêtrière, he became the chief of the photographic service 2 years later and one of the editors of the famous journal Nouvelle Iconographie de la Salpêtrière since 1888. So he specialized in medical photography and published the first treatise on this subject matter in 1893. But he also cultivated other photographic interests. For example, he published a lot of treatises on the magnesium flash, on developing techniques, on different kinds of cameras. So if there is a common thread in his photographic work, it is precisely his technical ability to adapt the photographic medium to the exigencies of each particular situation. And this is the important point of his work. So the series that illustrated Richard's visuality, the ones we just saw, had been taken with a chronophotographic device that London had built in 1893. Inspired by Marey's and others' devices, this camera, which is the reproduction, the lithograph in his book. So this camera was specifically designed by him to cover the medical needs at the Salpêtrière. For this purpose, such a camera had to meet the following criteria. It had to be able to operate against a normal background instead of the black one required by Marey's station physiologique. The size of the negatives had to be big enough to allow enlargement and projections because after that they will use it as a teaching material. And most important of all conditions, both the shutter speed and the intervals between each exposure had to be variable and adaptable to the particular conditions of each case. And the aim of this device should not be, therefore, to take the largest number of images in a short period of time, which is what we normally think about in chronophotography, but to capture enough number of images in order, and I quote, to seize the attitudes that can escape direct observation, and to discover the general march of the movement under analysis. So this number was fixed in 12 images. So this is why the chronophotographic device had 12 shutters that were arranged, as you can see, in 3 parallel lines, so the plate could be fully exposed. There was just one plate behind the shutters. And it provided 12 images organized in 3 rows of 4. The shutters work electrically and were activated, as we will see later, either by the photographer or by the movement of the model by breaking a thin thread that connected the path to the device. Unlike the previous photoelectrical device that London had invented 10 years before, this camera allowed recording rapid movements in 4 different combinations of exposure times and intervals between each exposure. For instance, Alan explained that while short exposure times, so at shutter speed really quick, but long intervals, so first one shutter and then another with long distance between them. So this mode was particularly suitable to record pathological gaits, which usually lasted longer than the normal gait, but had sometimes very rapid movements, like tremors or something. Long exposure times and short intervals with better hysterical symptoms, such as the spasmodic torticollis, in which the movement of the subject were not rapid, but performing a very short period of time. And animal and human locomotion, which is what interests us today, should be recorded using short exposure times and short intervals. So the proper functioning of this device also depended on the spatial conditions. Thanks to the funding provided by the City Council in Paris, a new outdoor photographic laboratory was created at the Salpêtrière in 1893, and this is one of the photographs. The man sitting on the left is Mary, who is just watching and the model. So it consists, as you can see, of a big screen of 6 for 3 meters, against which the subject could be easily and naturally perceived. He didn't need a special clothes like in Mary's case. And it consists on 2 paths, one running in parallel to the screen and the other in perpendicular. And this perpendicular path ended up into rays that guided the movement of the camera, so it could get closer or farther, keeping the same perspective. The making of the chronophotographic series depended, therefore, on many technical decisions, from the intervals between exposures to the shutter speed and the distance between the camera and the model, let alone decisions on the emulsions of the plate, the best developing technique, and the light conditions. All these elements determine the photographic outcomes. So this suggests that the scientific value of the chronophotographs rely on the procedures that had been followed rather than on the images themselves. Again, looking at the photographic series could provide some information about the appearance of a particular movement, as they made visible attitudes that escape the naked eye, as we have seen. But in order to extract some scientific and some physiological knowledge from them, one should also know the criteria that have been applied in each case for the analysis of the movement. In this regard, the scientific reader of these images should be familiarized with the photographic procedure and its material conditions. But the reader was not the only one that needed some knowledge in order to get scientific information from the chronophotographic method. Both the photographer and the model had also to follow a set of instructions that made sure that the photographs were produced in a systematic way. For example, the movements of the model tended to be as natural as possible, but they could not be spontaneous. As this chronophotographic series show, each routine was performed 3 or 4 times, so it could be recorded from both sides, facing towards and backwards. Therefore, the model had to know very carefully his routine, so he could repeat it without changing it much. He or she, because there's also photographs of women, needed to be familiarized with the space, with the length of the path, the direction, and so on. The photographer, for his part, needed to know the duration of the movement to record, as well as whether it was performed rapidly or slowly, in order to select the best recording options. But as slowly recognized, this decision was made based on experience. The manipulation of the device also requires some knowledge, which was not only technical but also practical. For example, the model could activate the camera at the beginning of the exercise by breaking the thin thread that connected the path to the device. But in other occasions, it was the operator who had to decide when to press the button. Very probably this was the case of performances like this one that did not involve any kind of translation, like walking or running, such as lifting a weight. Finally, the photographer had to decide the light conditions, as you can see in these photographs. because a light helps to highlight better the movement, and especially the muscles in movement, and the performance, and the model had to perform in accordance to this. So all these decisions could only be made after sessions of practice and repetitions. So these and other related actions can be interpreted as gestural knowledge. The historian of science, such as Sigmund, has described it, and I quote, as the complex of skills and forms of mastery developed in real-time performances. So these are the bodily performances that are required to use properly instruments and other objects in the laboratory or the clinic, but which are not explicitly stated because they belong to common knowledge. So gestural knowledge will refer in this example to the gestures and actions made by the photographer and the model that were intended to control the performance of movement on the one hand, and to coordinate and synchronize the actions of the model, the photographer, and the camera. This kind of implicit knowledge can therefore be considered, I think, as an embodied knowledge, which becomes a routine performed without notice. Performing movements in front of the camera led the model to learn how to move and to acquire the habit of moving in that way. Moreover, the dissemination of the drawings made after the photographs through a book written by a renowned scientist contributed to the standardization of human movement as explained in the text and shown in the illustrations. So this is, I think, the performative effect of photographic practices that I was referring at the beginning of the presentation. So the final photographic images had barely a role in this process, as only the scientists fully familiarized with the process could make sense of them. For the reader and the model in two different ways, the performative effect of drone photography had nothing to do with the photographic images, but with the practices of posing, of reading, of using, and so on. So I think this interpretation of drone photography can provide a model to interrogate current uses of images in big data, with all the differences. But most of the public debates, as we have seen today, are related to the visual qualities of these images. This is a case of questions of ownership of photographic images uploaded to social networks such as Facebook. No? So these debates reflect anxieties about losing control of their own image, and they are related to the privacy and all these issues that we have talked before. However, I think like in the examining case, the image is only one part of the problem. It's not even the most important one. I suggest that the urgent question is rather the performative one. How practices of taking, uploading, and sharing images online are producing habits and routine that make us act in different ways, and how practices of producing data from the images and the later analysis are producing results that affect us. And I will say how both processes should be understood, as Yvonne suggested, as bodily processes. They're not, are affecting our body, and we are doing with our bodies, not just on the computer. So that's it.